Today my postcard is from a royal palace that is awash with Tudor history, Stuart history, British history of all kinds. We're in Hampton Court in the county of Middlesex. Hampton Court is placed at the very edge of southwest Middlesex. The first buildings belonged to the Knights Hospitallers of St John of Jerusalem, and then the Knights acquired the manor of Hampton in 1236. In 1503, the abbot of the order used it to entertain Henry VII and his wife Elizabeth of York. In 1505, Henry's Lord Chamberlain, Sir Giles Daubeny, took a 99-year lease. 6 years after his death in 1508, a new 99-year lease was granted to Thomas Wolsey. I don't know if you're like me, but when you think of Hampton Court, I often think of Cardinal Wolsey, and why shouldn't you? Because this is the man, really, that gave Hampton Court its name. And in fact, he acquired Hampton Court in 1508. He was Archbishop of York. King Henry VIII had come to the throne, and he was the Chancellor to Henry. And of course, when you've got such high status, you need a place to show off, to prove to everybody that you had power. And that's why he came to Hampton Court. Around here, this base court, this huge courtyard, you've got 40 guest lodgings. Each guest would have had an inner and an outer room, and most importantly, they had their own loo. We'll go and see a little bit of Cardinal Wolsey in here because his coat of arms still is up there. Have you seen it then? His coat of arms. You see, he had a 99-year lease here on Hampton Court, but in 1528, Cardinal Wolsey had to give the palace over to the king, because the king liked it, and if the king likes it, then the king must have it. And Henry had the clock up there installed, very famous clock, the zodiac clock. That was so that he could tell the time of the tide, so he could go on the river to wherever he wanted to go up the Thames. And really, when you think of Henry VIII, that is quite sophisticated to have that clock there, because he bridged that gap between the medieval and the Renaissance period. I'm now standing in Fish Court, and you know, when Henry VIII moved his royal court in anywhere, but here at Hampton Court, one of his favourite palaces, you could imagine that here was a hive of activity, of people moving in to feed the man that not only loved his food, but just loved life. And all along here, these little doors would have seen all kinds of people using their wares, their trade, their industry to provide a service to the king, the queen, whoever it happened to be at the time, of course, and the whole of that Tudor court. Well, we're here in the great kitchens. All the preparation will be going on here. You can see lots of things. Leeks, which is very appropriate since the Tudors originally came from Wales. And you've got all of the sauces in great pots and the charcoal underneath that would soared up and give bubbling stews and broths and all kinds of things to pour over the food. And into here, from the preparation, this is where all the cooking took place. And you can see all around you, there's all kinds of things. You know, it took 200 people here to prepare the food for 800 members of the royal court, and that was twice a day. Laid out here is the food for the Feast of St John the Baptist in 1542. There'll be carp from the lakes here or the ponds here at Hampton Court. There's prunes and there's pies. In fact, there's lots of pies. You could call Henry VIII the desperate Dan of the medieval age. Centuries before Wimbledon, they were playing tennis here in Middlesex, as this very athletic-looking lady, Leslie Ronaldson, from the Hampton Court Real Tennis Club, tells us. What's your role here?
I'm one of the professionals here, and that comprises giving lessons, organising bookings, making the balls, stringing rackets.
Let's show us one of those balls, first of all.
This is a completed ball. There's about 60 to 70 stitches in each ball. We hand sew them.
Very hard.
They're very hard, a little like a rounder's ball. They used to be made with animal hair and human hair and animal leather. And this is one of the old rackets.
Yes, let's have a look at the racket, because that's very different to Wimbledon, isn't it?
Yes, it's the shape of the hand. In the olden days, they used to actually play with the hand. A long time ago, the game started in the 5th century in Tuscany when they played with the hand, and then gradually the racket obviously became, you could win more often with the racket, and by the 16th century, people started to only use the racket.
How old is this court here?
Originally, tennis would have been played here by Cardinal Wolsey's group. Henry VIII would have played on this site, but this court was first built in 1626 by Charles I. So we know he played here. Charles II used to play a lot as well.
What's the main difference between tennis as we know it and royal tennis?
Well, the modern game came from this game, and it's just very simplified real tennis. Unfortunately, this is known as real tennis.
This is just beautiful. Get a butcher's of this, it's glorious. The gardens. The Garden of Eden. It must have looked a bit like this. There are 1.3 million visitors to the garden each year, making it the most visited garden in the country. There's over 250,000 flowering bulbs planted in the gardens as a whole every year, and there's well over 100,000 rose bushes and around 7,500 trees. The oldest tree is the medieval English oak in Home Park, which is said to be over 1,000 years old, and all looked after by the 41 gardeners. Now, in 1689, William and Mary came jointly to the throne, and you can see there how the Stuart, the Baroque palace of William and Mary, is joined on to the Tudor palace of Wolsey and Henry VIII. But you know, when William and Mary came on the throne, they actually wanted to demolish the whole of the Tudor palace and build it completely in the Baroque style. Mary died. William lost all heart, and so basically, that's what you see today. And just along there, the first floor was Queen Mary's apartments, which he never saw because, of course, she wasn't around to see it. William III came to Hampton Court and really loved it because of its position and also because of the good hunting. Over there behind us is Home Park, originally Henry VIII's hunting grounds. Now, William III went to do some hunting, but fell off his horse because of a molehill. The horse stumbled, he went down a ton, and was taken from here to Kensington Palace, where he subsequently then died. He died of pneumonia because the window was kept open because it was meant to be healthy, but he got a cold, and that was that. From then on, his enemies raised a toast to the gentleman in black velvet. In honour of the mole his horse stumbled over. What a gentleman he is. And your name is?
My name is David.
Is David. Let's take a little stroll along here and you tell me precisely where we're at.
Well, you're now standing in the Privy Garden.
Yeah.
This is part of the palace built for William III.
The one who was married to Mary.
That is William and Mary.
That's
yes,
right.
Yes, indeed.
And they were joint monarchs, weren't they? He didn't rule by himself.
No, not at all, until Mary died in 1694. And then William had to continue the rest of his reign on his own. Yes, and he was an unpopular king, it has to be said.
Why was he unpopular?
He was a Dutchman.
Ah.
And the English people really didn't like being ruled by a foreigner. It has to be said. And certainly a gentleman, such as myself, might have had a thing or two to say about him.
And what would you have said about him?
I would certainly have not have liked the taxation that he puts on the English people, to taxing them to fight his war against France. He has a personal hatred of Louis XIV, the French king. He's the man who built Versailles. And William really intended Hampton Court to be a rival to Louis's palace at Versailles.
Oh, hence all the Baroque architecture, and Christopher Wren brought into, shall we say, update it in his words, no doubt would have been.
Exactly, yes, to get rid of that Gothic monstrosity of a Tudor palace and build this elegant, Baroque, classical palace.
I'm in Hampton Court Palace maze, as if you didn't know. They say probably the most famous maze in the world. I think definitely the most famous maze in the world. It's the only one I've ever known about. There are others dotted around. This was originally put together in 1690 by William of Orange, William III, probably by one of his royal gardeners, of course. It was planted in hornbeam, first of all, but it's now got fast-growing yew here. It was replanted in the 1960s. In Jerome K. Jerome's book, 3 Men in a Boat, one of the men said it's absurd to call it a maze, it's so simple, and then got completely lost. So I'm not going to be like him, but I'm going to send you off for a little pansy around the maze. Off you go. You made it. Well done. A couple of questions I heard you ask on the way. What's a hornbeam? Well, a hornbeam, which was the original tree, is a deciduous tree. As I said, this is all yew around here now. And I heard somebody ask what kind of shape the maze was as well. But it's trapezoidal. And that means it's sort of that, and that. And if anyone asks me what a rhombus is, then I'll say I don't know, but I think it's the same as a trapezoidal, but reversed. What's a rhombus got to do with this maze anyway?
Now, if you've never been down to Hampton Court, then you should be ashamed of yourself. Get down here quick. Cheerio.